What happens when the story of your people just vanishes from the classroom? You know, when textbooks swap truth for silence and then call that silence education. It's a really tough thought, and that's kind of where we're jumping into our sources today.
Yeah, and that silence, well, as we found digging into the material on Carter G. Woodson,
Yeah,
it's almost never just an accident.
right.
It's something he confronted head on.
Yeah.
He actually defined it as intellectual
It's
violence.
intellectual violence. Okay.
Because when a people's history is, systematically erased, the effects are immediate. They're devastating. Confidence just collapses. Imagination narrows right down.
And your future gets rewritten.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By whoever controls the story. This erasure of black history, black thought, it's like the quiet warfare of our times.
That phrase, quiet warfare, it's so powerful. And it immediately frames Wilson's mission, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because he got that the fight for freedom, well, it doesn't just start with policies or marches.
No, That's to start in the mind.
In the mind.
Absolutely. For Woodson, you see, history was never meant to be some dry list of, kings and baits.
No.
It was the vital search for meaning, for the power to decide what your community's suffering, and their triumphs, and their whole lineage, what it all signifies.
And if you lose that power, the power to define your own story.
You're already halfway to losing yourself completely.
And that makes sense why this deep dive feels like, well, like a restoration project. We're trying to map out these landmarks that others tried to just wipe off the map.
Exactly.
It reminds me of something our sources brought up from Frantz Fanon, the Wretched of the Earth. He wrote, "Every generation must, out of its relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it."
And Woodson's mission, it was crystal clear. Make the truth visible again. He flat out refused to let his generation betray its mission by just accepting that official silence.
Okay, so that's the foundation we're working with, and it leads right to a really critical thought we want to share with you, the listener, right now.
Yeah, think about this. What part of your own essential story have you maybe allowed other people, outside forces, to define for you?
And following Fanon, what is your generation's intellectual mission?
Heavy questions.
Yeah. So the man who really stood up to this huge system of erasure, Carter G. Woodson, his background just makes his achievement even more, well, incredible.
It really does. Born 1875, Virginia. His parents had been enslaved,
Formerly enslaved, yeah.
and his commitment to education, it was just staggering. The sources, they paint this picture of just relentless drive.
He worked in coal mines as a teenager.
Yeah, to help support his family, which meant, he didn't even start high school until he was 20.
20 years old. Wow.
But then, through sheer grit, just pure determination, he finished his diploma in less than 2 years.
That's incredible discipline before he even got near higher education.
Right. And then comes the academic climb. Degrees from Berea College, University of Chicago, and then 1912, the big one.
Harvard.
He becomes only the second African-American to earn a doctorate from Harvard.
Following W.E.B. Du Bois.
Exactly. But what's so fascinating and kind of ironic is that hitting that peak, getting that ultimate credential from the system, that was the moment of his biggest disillusionment.
Really? How so?
Well, he had the degrees, he had the status, right?
Yeah.
But he realized his real fight wasn't for those pieces of paper,
It was for something else.
for intellectual sovereignty, the right for his people to secure mental liberation by controlling their own story, telling their own history.
So was he following Du Bois' path at Harvard, or was he already starting to push back against that established academic way?
Oh, he was definitely pushing back. Du Bois was foundational, absolutely. But Woodson quickly realized that the very institutions, like Harvard, that gave him the PhD, they were fundamentally incapable, maybe unwilling, to teach black history honestly.
So the fight had to be elsewhere.
For Woodson, yeah. It was always outside those ivy walls. He didn't really see himself as just an academic. He was, in his mind, a freedom fighter of knowledge, putting his work right in the lineage of resistance.
Which leads us straight to that flashpoint moment for him. The point where he realized the system wasn't just like overlooking black history.
No, it was actively working against it. After all those years, all that intense study, he opens the official history books, the ones used in schools.
And what did he find? It wasn't just omissions.
Not at all. It was calculated design. He saw black contributions weren't just missing, they'd been systematically removed. And black life itself was deliberately distorted.
Okay, we need to understand the scale of that. What was the lie being taught? What specifically was missing or twisted?
Well, it's sort of twofold. First, the complete erasure of African civilization from world history, like gone, implying black ancestors contributed basically nothing of value.
Okay.
And second, reducing Black American life only to the period of slavery, just cutting it off from any history before that or any intellectual potential after that.
And he saw this wasn't just bad scholarship.
No, he recognized it immediately as a calculated attempt to destroy Black pride, to crush self-worth right from the start of a child's education.
That distinction is so important, the deliberate attempt to destroy pride. He saw these were the intellectual weapons, making kids vulnerable to, well, what Marcus Garvey later called the poisons of the West.
Precisely. It's destruction disguised as education.
So what did he call it?
He coined the term miseducation to describe this whole system. And our sources show, later on, he thought of it more as epistemic control.
Epistemic control?
Yeah, basically controlling what people believe by controlling what they're allowed to know. Simple but powerful. And he just refused to accept that. Refused to let the conqueror write the history books.
He could have just been angry or despairing, right? But instead,
He channeled it. He turned that pain, that realization, into a lifelong duty, a mission.
not just critiquing what was missing.
No, way beyond that. He dedicated himself to actually building the entire infrastructure needed, the institutions, the documentation, everything required to teach history as an act of restoration.
That's a huge pivot, from academic critique to institution builder.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, we all kind of face moments like that, maybe on a smaller scale. Times we discover some truth, some story that just fundamentally shifts how we see ourselves or our community.
Right.
The real question then becomes, okay, you have this truth. The veil's been lifted. What do you actually do with it?
And for Woodson, that discovery, that truth, became his blueprint for action, which then pulled him into alignment with Marcus Garvey's core ideas, didn't it? Especially around self-knowledge, pride.
Absolutely. We can look at it through that head, heart, hands framework, where study itself becomes a form of resistance.
Okay, let's break that down. Head first, the mindset.
So the head is that shift. Education wasn't about assimilation anymore. It was about liberation. He started writing regularly for Garvey's newspaper, The Negro World.
Right, I read that.
And those specific articles where he just picked apart how the school system was damaging black kids' minds, those became the core of his groundbreaking book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Came out in 1933.
A foundational text. And the heart, the purpose. That connects straight to Garvey too, right? The roots.
Directly. This is where Garvey's wisdom about roots and lineage is so key, that powerful image he gave us. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots.
Such a potent metaphor.
And Garvey even added, history is the landmark by which we are directed into the true course of life. Woodson took that deep philosophical insight
And turned it into hands, action.
immediately translated into the hands. The concrete work, the sheer discipline needed to build something real, something lasting.
And this is where we really need to pause and just appreciate the scale of the effort. It's one thing to write a book, even a groundbreaking one. It's totally another thing to build institutions from the ground up.
Especially back then with little to no major funding.
Exactly.
It was monumental. So 1915, he founds the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, the ASNLH.
ASNLH, okay.
Think about what that meant in 1915. This wasn't just some reading group. He was establishing a serious scholarly society, a network to collect, analyze, publish historical documents the mainstream universities wouldn't even touch.
So finding scholars, funding them somehow, publishing journals, organizing conferences.
He basically built the academic infrastructure that the establishment refused to provide, all while holding down other jobs to survive.
Incredible. Just pure will.
Total discipline. And that relentless work culminated about, a decade later, 1926? He realized he needed to reach everyday people, the masses.
So he launched Negro History Week.
Launched Negro History Week. He timed it strategically between the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass.
Clever.
And that seemingly small event, that 1 week a year, that was the seed. That's what eventually grew into the Black History Month we observe today.
Wow, so those actions, they took his vision from just a critique on paper.
And made it a living, breathing, working reality. He didn't just complain about the missing history. He engineered the entire system for its survival, its growth, its spread.
Okay, so thinking about that huge effort, that commitment, we want to ask you, the listener, where can your own study, your own pursuit of knowledge, become an act of liberation for you?
Yeah, how can you maybe transform what might feel like a personal gap, a loss of history, into something that builds collective purpose and pride?
Because like Woodson showed, knowledge isn't enough by itself, right? It really demands action. Which brings us straight to our final challenge for you this week.
It's direct, it's actionable. Reclaim the power of study, just like Woodson did.
Here's the specific challenge. Go find one untold story. One story of Black excellence or resistance that your regular education or your social media feed or just your general awareness has missed.
We mean something really new to you, a
Yeah.
specific person, a specific event, a detail you didn't know.
Or once you've found that story, you have to share it this week.
Yeah, don't keep it to yourself. Post it online. Talk about it. Tell a friend. Tell your family. Because every single recovered truth, every story you personally lift out of the shadows.
It weakens that machinery of erasure.
Exactly. It pushes back against that systemic intellectual violence Woodson fought his whole life.
He showed us that freedom really starts in the mind. So the question is, how will you turn your learning into power this week?
Carter G. Woodson's legacy, it's just immense. He demonstrated that freedom truly begins the moment we stop letting other people tell our story for us.
Yeah, he took the classroom, that space that seems so passive, maybe safe, and he turned it into an active battlefield for freedom.
Wielding knowledge itself as a weapon for self-determination.
He understood fundamentally that this work, this intellectual liberation, it's intergenerational. It keeps going.
Woodson's mission was clear.
Yeah.
Make truth visible. So the question left for you now is, what specific truth do you, as a learner, as someone engaging with this history, need to make visible in your world today?
That's a perfect thought to carry with you. And next week, we're going to continue this vital exploration of mental liberation, of the power of real education.
With a deep dive on Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass and how he used literacy itself as a radical, world-changing weapon.
So stay with the deep dive, where imagination, discipline, and truth keep the work of freedom alive.